Hi there, everybody. My name's Kay Gilbert, and I set up and run the Tennis Parents Community, which is an award-winning support network of over 2,900 tennis parents in the GB system whose children are training here. And we help each other to really understand what this sport is all about and support each other to do the right thing by our own children. So we try and work out, based on our own circumstances, what the good support looks like for our own children. So if you're a tennis player based in the UK and not yet a member, do come and join us on Facebook. All you have to do is search for the Tennis Parents Community, and you'll also find us on Instagram, and we have a YouTube channel which is full of recordings just like this one that you're going to listen to today. These are available not just to parents but also to anybody from the world of tennis who wants to understand things from a parent's point of view. So joining me today, we've got Hannah Knox and Claire Young from the LTA Safeguarding team. We're going to talk to them about how your child can benefit from the Young Person's Welfare Ambassador scheme. We want to look at how your child can get involved and also what the benefits to them of doing so are. So welcome to the Tennis Parents Community, Hannah and Claire.
Hi. Okay.
And so, first of all, perhaps you'd like to introduce yourselves, guys, and tell us what your roles are within the LTA safeguarding team.
Yeah, sure. So, as Kay said, I'm Hannah Knox, and I'm the Regional Safeguarding Officer for the North Midlands East region. For those that aren't aware of what that covers Cumbria, Northumberland, Durham and Cleveland, Yorkshire, Lincolnshire, Nottinghamshire, Leicestershire, and Derbyshire. And as a regional safeguarding officer, our role is to support registered venues with the safeguarding standards to make sure that all venues are able to put those in place and help to make safe places. My background is originally primary education and then 10 years in children's services, working in MASH and managing an early help team.
What does MASH stand for?
Sorry, multi-agency safeguarding hub. So that's where referrals come into local authorities about children and families, and it's to triage and look at the support required for them.
Gosh, that's quite a stint in that sort of
Yeah.
role, isn't it? I
Yeah.
know friends who work in a similar field, and you almost have to have a while and then have a break and come back again, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
quite
definitely.
intense. How about you, Claire?
Hi everybody, so I'm Claire Young. I am a regional safeguarding officer as well. So I look after North and Midlands West, so the other side of the country to Hannah. So I have, so my counties are the Isle of Man, Lancashire, Cheshire, Shropshire, Staffordshire, Warwickshire, Gloucestershire. Though covers a massive area, just like Hannah, really. So my background is also education. So I did about 20 plus years in the classroom, and then latterly, again, worked for local authority, but in a slightly different role to Hannah. So I worked with children that were electively home educated, and so had a really big safeguarding oversight with what children were doing. And then I also have a personal interest in youth sport. My daughter plays sport, so that's kind of where the two fit together really nicely for me.
Oh, great. And have you both been with the LTA quite a long time, or is it new role?
I'm quite new still, so I'm about 6 months in.
And
Okay.
I've been here just about 4.5 years now.
Okay. And obviously you have your regional roles, but also you have a national sort of project-based role with the LTA Young Person's Welfare Ambassador. So thank you for joining us today to explain that to us. Now, we know that the LTA safeguarding team works at a national level and a regional level as well. But to put things into context for us, could you briefly remind us of the structure that exists locally in venues that parents take their children to?
Yeah, absolutely. So all registered venues should have welfare officers in place. So within that, ideally within that committee setup. and their role is to, in very much in a similar way to what we do, their role is to look after safeguarding in their venues for children, so those under 18 and adults at risk. They are responsible for the minimum standards in safeguarding, and that's something that we support venues with by way of auditing and supporting them. They are also responsible for DBS checks, safeguarding training for all coaches and officials that are in any way linked to their venue. And they also support with DBS checks for volunteers. And these are the things that we check as we support venues with their visits.
And just on that point then, if any parent listening was particularly skilled in this area or had an interest in improving this in their own local venue, presumably they could speak to the committee and they'd get good support from the LTA in terms of actually doing that role. Because I can imagine it's quite a scary role for some people. They think they're going to be handling cases, but that's not the case, is it?
Absolutely. So lots of our welfare officers come from similar backgrounds to ourselves, but also lots don't. So there is a whole raft of training that's available for if you start this role, both kind of formal training, and then we do things like our welfare officer induction program. So yeah, there's lots of support both from ourselves and also from county safeguarding officers, which are in place in every county as well. So
And you
yeah, it's very
mentioned
definitely a
the audit.
worthwhile.
Is that the county role to do the audit, or is that a regional role within the LTA?
That's a regional role. So that's something that we do. County safeguarding officers are really there to support practically.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, with all that in place, can you perhaps explain, Hannah, why the LTA wanted to involve 14 to 16-year-olds in safeguarding, especially as it's quite a sensitive area?
Yeah, sure. It's, like you say, it is a sensitive area, but it's one of those things that the more we talk about it, the more people should feel comfortable with those things and actually remove that stigma. So the more you talk about the little things, or the more you talk about safeguarding, welfare, mental health, the easier people should feel if they're, hopefully there won't come a time, but if there is a time where they have a concern or they're worried about something, they know who to speak to and they know that's okay. So we know that from various different evidence that young people are more likely to share things with a friend or a peer, and particularly if they're victims of sexual abuse, but with anything, which is why we then developed the role. Although that particular role is not part of the reporting process, it is very much about promoting and having those conversations, and trainings provided to help ensure that whoever takes on the role knows how to signpost and who to speak to help somebody get support if they have spoken to them. When we completed the initial pilot a few years ago now, 2023, we started off, one of the main areas we wanted to increase was for young people to know who their venue welfare officer is. As Claire spoke about who they are, every venue must have a registered welfare officer in order to be registered with us at the LTA. And we wanted to make sure that children and young people knew who they were, because if they need to speak to somebody, then they need to know that that is another trusted person that's available. The original, we did an initial survey to understand the baseline understanding of that, and the initial data was that only 48% of young people knew who their venue welfare officer was. Within that pilot, it was a 6-month pilot where the YPWAs were able to implement certain things at their venues that they felt would benefit and help to increase various different areas, but that was one of the main metrics we looked at. And in just 6 months, that was increased. The awareness of who the welfare officer was increased to 65%. So it was a 17% increase in just 6 months, which was fantastic. So we knew this was kind of the right way to go with it, and we've had a lot of interest within the role, and as well as promoting the safeguarding, it provides that different voice and perspective, and almost helps to allow clubs to future-proof and plan for the future in terms of other committee roles. The program's designed to allow the young people to develop all sorts of different skills, which can benefit them, but also benefit the tennis club and keep that running.
Yeah, I get that. It's a sort of a different voice, isn't it, perhaps, and one that's much more relatable for young people within a club, a bit more authentic, perhaps. And you know, it sounds like, as you say, although they're not getting involved in the reporting process, we'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. But they are that sort of glue that bonds together the system that's in place to support children. And I should also say that at some point we will discuss what to do if anybody watching has got a concern, and how to report that through. But let's move on now to talk a little bit about what the role, and I heard you there call it the YPWA, which rolls off your tongue so nicely, but obviously, but we will try and start calling it that, the young person's welfare ambassador, the YPWA. Okay, brilliant. So Claire, could you tell us a little bit more about what the role of a young person welfare ambassador actually involves?
Absolutely, yeah. So it's very much about providing that voice, that young person's voice and perspective within a venue that's promoting safeguarding and welfare. So a voice that that other young people within the venue can relate to and understand. We want them to promote those open conversations with others, and to be able to ask questions about, so who is my welfare officer? So who should I speak to if I've got a concern? You know, children talk to children, don't they? The peer, that peer influence is really important. And that's, as Hannah said, that's something that we really want to kind of use and bring forward. And we want venues to be actively listening to their young people, to their children in their venues, and with the YPWAs supporting that for our other young people in our venues. The role also is about helping to spread awareness of the routes. As you said, we're going to talk about how to report something, but so the YPWAs will support that, to spread that awareness of how you report something if something is happening in your peer group or to somebody that you know. Because again, we know with young people it's often easier to stay quiet because they're afraid, and so we want to be able to change that. And then small talk. So we want to be able to talk to children about the little things, because we know that that when you're talking about the little things, that's sometimes when they feel more comfortable to talk about those bigger things when they need to. So very much about promoting relationships and the relationship between the adult members of venues and the young people in the venues as well.
I guess when you were working in a school environment, Claire, you got that sort of regular contact with children day by day, but in a club, perhaps it's less so. So having a young person that's sort of relatable, who you're seeing regularly at the club and maybe even seeing outside of the club, is I can understand how that connection really improves then, given that the venue themselves perhaps don't see the children that often, and the coach is perhaps only seeing them once or twice a week.
And in sport, young people, they become friends through their sport, don't they? So having that link is, yeah, super important to us.
Brilliant. And Hannah, we've said already that the role doesn't involve being part of that reporting process or even that investigation process. What could you explain a little bit more about that, please? What they won't be doing, and in fact, while you're doing that, perhaps you could talk about how that reporting structure does work for adults to report a safeguarding, or indeed a child, but not through the young person welfare ambassador.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, like I said, the role's very much to promote safeguarding and welfare within venues. So it's about those messages that Claire was just talking about, you know, making it really clear that we can talk about things, that what is safeguarding. I think when we've spoken to a number of young people and through surveys and different things, the word for it, safeguarding, a lot of children don't know what that means. So we've, been developing different things with young people within their own venues, but also on a wider LTA point of view. And it's about making sure that they know where to go if they need any help. We do recognise that whilst they're not part of the formal reporting process, YPWA's being in that position, it does increase the likelihood that a child may say something to them or may open up to them about something, because that's what research tells us, that children and young people will talk to peers. But as part of the programme, YPWAs have specific training, specific safeguarding training that allows them to understand how to manage that conversation at that point, including not making promises, that type of thing, and then knowing who to then speak to. And at that point, they should then speak to the welfare officer at the venue to ensure that that child or young person can access the support, or they can report directly to us at the LTA safeguarding team. So in terms of the reporting process for anybody, be that child, young person or parent, or even just a venue member that might have seen something or be concerned about something, first of all, you can speak to your venue welfare officer. They are specially trained, they have a DBS, and you will be able to see a poster around your venue with their details on, or you may be able to see something on the venue website or on a notice board that includes further information of how to contact them. As I say, they're specially trained. They all concerns are treated confidential, and they will look at the most appropriate support. The welfare officer then reports or shares that information with us in the LTA safeguarding team. If you don't want to speak to the welfare officer for whatever reason, you can report directly to us at the LTA safeguarding team using our report a concern page. And there is a link, there should be a link on your venue website. On the poster, the welfare officer poster, there'll be a QR code that you can scan. If you've got a phone, you can scan that and complete the form straight away on there. Or you can access it on the LTA web pages. That then comes into our dedicated safeguarding team, who will then look to ensure that there is the right support in the right place and investigate where needed, to ensure that any concerns are managed. As I say, everything is dealt with confidentially, and you are guided through that process. If you are part of that concern, you will be, supported and ensure that everything is there where required.
And then there's also obviously other options outside of tennis, aren't there? The local council, for example, or even if a child or a vulnerable adult is at immediate risk, you can always call 999, can't you?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. So on the poster, you will find there's a link that if you're unsure of who your local authority, children's or adult services are, you can follow that link, enter your postcode, and that will then tell you who your local authority is and how you can contact the children's or adult services in that particular area. The way they work, our daytime tends to be sort of 8 till 5 or 8 till 6, and then they'll have an emergency duty team that's available outside of those hours, including weekends and bank holidays. You can also contact the NSPCC directly as well for support. And as a welfare officer, even if, like you say, in at 999, if it's an emergency, as a welfare officer, even if you report those things via those routes, the information will also come to us in the LTA safeguarding team so that we can join the two and make sure there aren't any gaps, basically. So we need to make sure that the whole jigsaw is pieced together.
So the young person welfare ambassador is really about getting this message on reporting concerns to the broader audience and to the audience that actually might well be the vulnerable child. And I understand a bit better now that it's not a role that parents should be worried about, saying, oh gosh, my child's not really going to be able to deal with these very grown-up issues, and what, how would that look for them? That could be very stressful. It's more about raising awareness, being a friendly ear, and learning some skills as they go along through the training. Am I right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk, I think later on, we'll talk a little bit more in detail about what that what that looks like, but it is very much about recognizing what's healthy and you know, what looking at a child or young person's well-being. And you know, particularly you talked earlier about children and young people that are competing. There is, you know, we look at that as well, and the information that's within the programme helps to support children and young people who are competing and managing how that may affect their well-being or physical being.
And of course, there is a difference between code of conduct issues in tennis and safeguarding, but parents shouldn't worry too much about that. If they've got any concern, it's better to report it, and then it'll be worked out from there. But
100%.
Safeguarding is, well, a vulnerable adult or a child. Because I know sometimes people think, oh, well, somebody, a chap at my club yelled at another chap, and I thought it was going to turn out, you know, not very pleasant. But that's not a safeguarding issue unless it's a vulnerable adult, is it?
Yeah, no, yeah. Correct. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, well, I feel like I understand that part. So let's talk in a bit more detail then about who can become a young person welfare ambassador. Do they have to already be a member of a club or venue? Do they have to be a good tennis player? What does that look like, Claire?
Okay, so young people aged 14 to 24, that's our kind of our target audience for this role. So you're covering such a huge area. So from those young people sort of pre-GCSE through GCSEs, A levels, going on to university. And we'll talk a little bit about the benefits that gives to all those different areas of their life as we talk a little bit more. It's important that the young person has a relationship with a registered venue, an LTA registered venue. That can include a school. So we do have quite a lot of schools and universities that are registered venues. That could be a club as well, a venue, you know, of any kind. So if that's something you're not sure about, then we can help you with that. So if you're watching this and you're maybe not part of a venue and you're in a school but you're not quite sure, please come to us and talk to us, because we should be able to help support that moving forward. So in terms of your involvement in tennis, so you can have lots and lots of involvement, or you can really not have very much at all. It could be a second sport or a third sport. You know, we know a lot of our young people don't just play one sport, especially sort of for the younger age. They're not just playing one sport. They might be playing two or three. And what we find is that, so one of the great things is that this can really support that. If you're looking for a future in terms of careers, this is really going to help spread that net as wide as possible. We've had YPWAs in the past that don't play tennis, but their parents do. So it could be that a parent is seeing this and thinking, oh, that would be good for my child, but they don't play tennis. That's okay too. It's that idea of becoming involved within a venue, sort of moving forward in the scheme. Yeah.
It sounds like a great idea if you had a child who played tennis a lot and another child who perhaps didn't, but was being involved in the tennis world. I know my children sort of got dragged along a bit and ended up all playing, but some children I know weren't playing tennis, and you know, presumably they could get involved, if you like, with their siblings' hobby through this scheme.
Yeah, it's a really lovely way. So if you're not, if you're like you say, if you're not the stronger of the tennis players, or if you're not so interested but you still want to be involved, absolutely. We're not looking for amazing high level tennis players all the way through. We want a massive variety, because that makes it more interesting as well for the young people. They can find somebody that they relate to much more easily that way. So yeah.
Yeah, and interesting, my children had, I think they called it vertical tutor groups in their secondary school. And it was amazing because they were making friends across all different year groups. And sometimes in tennis, we're very much sort of siloed into our age group and our sex, aren't we? And it's just a nice idea. I know my children hero worship some of the older children at county level when they were smaller, and equally we're really supportive of the younger children. So it's sort of bringing the community together a little bit more within the children in the club. So they're not just turning up at the club, having a lesson and disappearing. They're actually getting to know people at the club, which is always a great thing for safeguarding, isn't it? If everybody knows everybody at a club, it's so much more effective to sort of understand what's going on, who's at the club, and making sure people are kept safe.
Absolutely, that open communication and that kind of that trust will be what will make the difference for some young people, definitely.
Oh, brilliant. Thanks, Claire. Well, I think it's sort of a good time then, Hannah, to understand exactly what this program is, because we've talked about it as a program, and you know, there's obviously certain roles within their responsibilities. But what's the actual program? What do you, as the LTA, wrap round for the children to actually enable them to get this sort of, is it like a qualification, or is it just having achieved this sort of status of passing the course? I don't know.
Cool, thank you. So just to add on to what Claire was mentioning there around young people that can come from all sorts of backgrounds, one thing we dictate with a welfare officer is that they can't be part of the coaching team due to conflict of interest, for example, if there are any concerns about the coaches. However, a YPWA can be a coach. We've had a number that have been level 1 coaching assistants at level 2, level 3, so that it's a fantastic opportunity to do something other than coaching, or to build on that. And actually the ones that have been coaching at their venues and being a YPWA, they've found it's been a really good way to promote even further, because they're already building the relationships with those children, particularly the younger ones. So the reason we made that decision is because, like I said, they are not part of the reporting process. So we are happy for, and we recognise that a lot of children and young people at that age probably are looking at coaching or doing that. So we wanted to open it up to as many people as possible.
That's actually a good point, isn't it? Because I imagine a lot of children go along to coaching courses and never actually really engage with the venue itself. And if you've got a coaching program rather than a coach that's perhaps embedded in your club, you have a program that comes to your club, then it's very hard for the club to even know who the children are that are being coached, let alone whether they're being looked after. So there is a huge amount of trust placed in that coaching program, and obviously they all undergo training and have DBS checks, but having that extra little connection in there of somebody that's responsible for just, you know, being a second voice, that sounds really sensible to me.
Yeah, good. Yeah, so we've definitely seen some real positive things around that. The program in itself is a 12-month program, and it can be started at any point. So young people can sign up to that now, but they can actually start the work, say, in 3 months' time if they wanted to. The reason we've done that is because we recognise that young people have varying levels of availability through the year, particularly in that age group, you know, with exams and different things, or if they're starting university, and even, you know, depending on the type of club as well, will depend on how much activity can be done throughout winter, for example. So we've done it so that it runs from 12 months from the point at which they start. And as long as the tasks, which I'll talk about in a minute, are completed within that 12 months, that's absolutely fine. So if somebody's looking at this now and thinking, I want my child to sign up to this, it's absolutely okay for them to sign up now. But if they then think, oh, I might do something in half term, or I might do something in the Christmas holidays, that's fine. It's ready in there for them to crack on with that if they've registered at the beginning. So everything they need once you're enrolled is online via LTA Learn, which is like Blackboard if you've been in any sort of education establishment, like at university, where things are available. And actually, most people, if you've completed any LTA learning online, it's the same principle. Everything is based on there. There are 3 online training modules, which are a maximum of 20 minutes each. And again, we've done that to recognise that, you know, kids don't want to be sat doing a training for a long period of time. It adds that flexibility. And the 3 modules cover areas that we identified from some research when we were looking at developing the programme back in 2022. And we've then seen the same themes coming up. So like I mentioned before, there's the first one, which is Introduction to Safeguarding within tennis, and that includes tools and tips to support them in their role. There's one around mental health and the impacts of competing. That was a big thing that came out when we looked at what do young people worry about who play tennis, and a lot of the things came out around the competitive nature and how that might make them feel on court, off court. So there's a little bit of, there's a module on that about supporting and how to promote the support available for children and young people around that, and what you can do in terms of different activities. And then the third one is around online safety and bullying and social media. And again, that was the information gathered from that was from the research that we'd previously done. They get a certificate for each of those. One thing I should have mentioned at the beginning, when they've signed up as well, is they get a hoodie to promote their role. So, you know, children, young people at the venue can see who they are very clearly. And the welfare officer at the venue also gets a t-shirt to help promote their role as well. So it kind of comes into within that. And they also get a letter from Scott Lloyd, which, you know, is a great piece of paper to have, to show that, you know, Scott is very much invested in the programme. We as a governing body are invested in the programme. So it demonstrates that backing within that.
Scott being the CEO of the LTA.
The CEO, yeah, sorry. So once they've completed those 3 online training modules, they have a choice of 15 tasks that are listed on LTA Learn, and they need to complete a minimum of 5. And the tasks vary, and they're designed to be, you know, they can be as little or as big as they want them to be. And the tasks were developed from our pilot year, where we learned a lot about what works and what doesn't for the young people to develop. So they include notice boards, a children's notice board, thinking about little things like, if you're doing a notice board for children and you're aiming some of the things at 6-year-olds, you don't want a high notice board, it needs to be lower, and the different materials. And, you know, it's very, there is direction within that, but we want the young people to be as creative as possible. So they'll see when signed up that there isn't a lot of dictatorship in terms of how they produce this. It's just, you know, safeguarding notice board for children and young people. They have the free run to do whatever they would like. Podcasts is one of the things to do a podcast, to almost do, if they want to, they can do a bit of an interview about their role or safeguarding. We had one young person do that last year, and it was brilliant. Quizzes or events at the venues as well. One example from our pilot year, one of the YPWAs, he did a quiz, a safeguarding quiz, invited all 120 junior members from his club, and 90 of them rocked up on the day, took part in the quiz, learnt about safeguarding, met their YPWA, met their welfare officer. They all got a bag of Haribo, and the winner got a £20 Amazon voucher. And it was fantastic to see the engagement within that. And he piggybacked.
Something similar at our AGM in my county, where one young person welfare ambassadors came and did a quiz for all the attendees of the AGM, and it was really interesting, the questions that a lot of people in the room hadn't even thought or couldn't answer. So it was sort of edutainment, I think they call it, don't they? Where it was sort of an educational thing, but entertaining at the same time. Brilliant.
Yeah, definitely. So there's loads of different things available, and they, you know, they can adapt some of those if they think of other things that they think would be really useful. Then they can absolutely do that. Once they've chosen those, they have, as I say, the whole year to sort of work their way through, and they're just required to just upload evidence online, and that evidence can be a photo or a video, or even just like an action plan or whatever that they've done. If they've done anything on their venue website, put the link on there, and as and when they've done it, they can just upload, and when they feel, you know, happy with that particular task, submit that, and that's done. And then they can move. They can do them all at the same time, and then submit them all at the end, or they can do them, you know, one by one, and then there is a final submission point at the end where they declare that they've done everything. And at that point, they'll receive a certificate, again signed by the LTA CEO, to show that they've completed the programme. and they're able to then continue in how they work in their venue, and hopefully within that 12 months they've become embedded within that venue, and it's kind of part and parcel of them being there.
Yeah, so it sounds like an amazingly well thought out scheme, and it's obviously been in place, designed in 2022, I think you said. So it's been working for a while now. So this is really why we wanted to bring this to tennis parents, because a lot of the people listening probably won't have actually heard of this, even though it's very well known to people within the LTA. It's very in place. Probably counties are very familiar, but just getting that word out broader so that parents can understand exactly what's in it for their kid. And we're going to move on in a moment to that. But Claire, could you perhaps tell us then how a parent can support their child to actually sign up for this program? Does it cost anything? Who do they need to speak to? Is it through the coach or the venue? How does that actually work to get going?
Okay, so each young person needs to be, as we said, assigned to a registered venue, and so it's the welfare officer or somebody else within the club that would support them with that. So when a young person signs up, then there's, I think Hannah said, there's also a link for the welfare officer to sign up. So that can be a welfare officer or a main committee member who's maybe responsible for that. So I was talking to somebody the other day who said that they've actually got a committee member who's responsible for coaching, who, not a coach, but responsible for coaching, who may well do that because they've got that closer link to the young people. So somebody in a venue that's also going to support.
Sorry, just to be clear, if my child wanted to sign up, and I'm listening to this now and think, great, what's the first thing I do? Do I go online and help them sign up on the LTA website, or do I go and speak to the venue first and get somebody to be on board with it?
So, I mean, absolutely go on and sign up. So yeah, I think Hannah's going to share I think we've got a QR code that she's going to share, which does take you directly to the YPWA page on the LTA website, but you can also just Google LTA YPWA and it comes up straight away.
Okay.
So, and the two links are on there. So there's the link for the YPWA themselves to sign up with, and then also for the venue to sign up as well. So yeah, I would say absolutely. I mean, we want venues to be supportive of it because it's obviously much easier for young people to have that support behind them. But yeah, get them signed up
and if they say, well, actually the venue says, well, we've already got 5 of these, is it one per venue or is it as many as you
no,
like?
absolutely not. In fact, in some ways, the more the merrier.
Okay.
Because they can the young people, they can choose to do specific tasks all together, as a group. It doesn't just have to be one person at all. In fact, I think we quite like the idea of having more than one. And that's something that we're definitely going to be looking for in the future as we move forward. But so if there are already YPWAs at your venue, don't think, oh gosh, there is already one, so we can't do it. That's not the case at all. And in some ways, that's even better because you will already have somebody within your venue who's familiar with the process and the support that a young person will need when they're part of the programme.
And you could do it with your sibling, you could do it with your friend from squads, or you could do it with somebody from perhaps outside of the venue who's at school, and you think they'd be able to support and come into the venue and offer a different perspective. That's brilliant. And does it cost anything?
So there's a £20 sign up, which is reimbursed by the venue. So although you're paying it to start with, it will come straight back. And then any materials that you need, so any printing or paper or things like that, should also be funded by the venue.
Brilliant.
So no cost really.
Okay, and so they should pay that online, but then go to the venue, and the venue will then reimburse that.
Exactly that.
Okay.
Yes.
And apart from being a great initiative, what are the other benefits to the child in participating with the programme?
So there's lots. We've agreement with the Duke of Edinburgh Awards for these hours that are used to be able to contribute towards young people completing Duke of Edinburgh. It's also a great opportunity to include in your UCAS statement the different things that we've talked about, developing the posters, or they might do presentations at committees, or be involved in various different initiatives. Particularly at this kind of time of year when young people are starting to look at universities, or even CVs and college applications, you know, the backing of that to show that they've been involved within that programme voluntarily, and develop those skills within there as well. Gaining, you know, valuable new skills, supporting their tennis club, and also helping to make our sport safe and enjoyable, and build those connections, and really build their confidence as well. And I think Claire might cover off on that shortly, around kind of the benefits of what other ambassadors have seen over the time of their completing. It also gives them a chance to be involved in other LTA safeguarding projects. We have worked with our previous YPWAs to seek their voice, to inform different developments, and for anybody who was able to or couldn't on the day, we had a YPWA presenting at our national conference on Saturday, which had over 1,200 people signed up to. So, you know, there were some brilliant opportunities, and we really do value the input that we get from these young people. And again, I think Claire will cover that off shortly.
So yeah, just to be clear, it's not like a coaching job where it will be a paid role. So if you know, a lot of young people will take their tennis leaders course, and that now has developed as well, hasn't it, into not just being about necessarily becoming a coach, but a lot of people who do the tennis leaders, often it's run by the coach. It will lead to a coaching role and a Saturday job or a bit of pocket money, whatever it is. But this is really more a first step into volunteering, and really great that it supports all of those different things, because I imagine children are constantly looking now for safe environments where they can get experiences and basically some kind of internship, so that they can put that onto their CV for whatever purpose. So brilliant that the LTA are offering a structure for that, to the sort of cohort of tennis players out there. And then the programme has obviously been running for a while now. Can you tell us a bit about those ambassadors that have gone through the programme and what sort of success they've had?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in terms of like direct feedback that we've had from schools and parents regarding the impact of the programme, we've seen so many reports of increased confidence, of opening up career pathways for young people that they've either not thought about before or didn't feel they got sufficient experience or confidence to do that. We have also worked with MenCap, and supported young people in their work placement. So they've done the YPWA scheme as part of their work placement. And that's something that we're looking to continue that relationship with MenCap as well. So just bringing something completely different to the mix, really. I think Hannah touched on a little bit about the initiatives that our young people have been involved in. And I mean, so particularly this weekend with our safeguarding conference, I actually visited a venue this week, and the welfare officer said to me that it was the most impactful start to a conference that she's ever seen, having a young person introduce it, which I thought was amazing. So to have those young people having that kind of impact in our sport is incredible. We've also had one of the YPWA's present at our all colleague meeting. So that's for everybody who's employed by the LTA. We all get together and they have presented what being a YPWA means to them. So obviously that's not just the learning for the colleagues that we're talking to. That's an incredible thing for a young person to be able to present electronically, so over Teams or Zoom, to a room full of lots and lots of people, you know, in terms of moving their confidence forward and their skills. That's an incredible feat for a young person. And as Hannah said, we've had, you know, redesign of web pages, we've had young people making videos, we've even had an LTA award winner as one of our YPWAs. So absolutely huge successes already with just a relatively small group of young people. So if you think about moving that forwards and having so many more involved, we're really looking forward to that, the way the success changes as we move forward.
It's fascinating because, I mean, in the world of tennis parenting, we're often obsessed with things like performance measurements and ways of getting our children into the right squads, right competitions. But for developing them as people, I think this scheme is a real different step for the LTA. And I think it's coming back to this idea that they belong to communities in tennis clubs, and they're communities that they may well belong to for their whole lives, whether they stay locally or move away. They can always find a tennis club. And it's a really lovely thing that the LTA are thinking outside of the whole performance structure for children, and recognizing that we can actually change lives through tennis, and introduce all sorts of ideas like this to diverse communities, and support children in their local areas to really be much more part of those communities. So, I mean, a big thank you really to the LTA for this one. I think it's a superb scheme. Hannah, do you want to just finish off by explaining? I think you've mentioned there's a QR code. What next step would you like anyone listening to take?
Yeah, great. Yeah, thank you firstly for talking to us about it. Like you said, we are really passionate about the programme. So if anybody's listening and you either have a child or young person that you think would be interested, or you know somebody at your venue that you think, actually, yeah, this looks really good, and we want to get involved, please do. You can speak to your welfare officer, like we said earlier, and I've also got a QR code where I'll share that shortly for you to be able to scan now and access it. You can also visit the LTA website and do www.lta.org.uk/YPWA, and that will take you straight to the page. Your venue welfare officer needs to sign up as well via a separate link, but please, young people can sign up straight away, and then have those discussions with your venue to then get involved. So hopefully I'll be able to get this up. Can you see the QR code? Brilliant. But yeah, any questions, please feel free to discuss, with your venue, or contact via our YPWA email address. We've got ypwa@lta.org.uk. So any questions or anything can be dropped into there. But thanks again, and we really hope we can work with so many more amazing young people.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you, Hannah, very much. Thank you, Claire, also for your time and all of that wisdom. And yeah, please, guys, we'll share this on the Facebook group and also on our YouTube channel. And we'll share that QR code as well. So thank you once again, both for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers now. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.